she screamed. "You're trespassing! This is HOA property now," while standing knee-deep in the mud that used to be my front yard. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days and the water was crawling up the road they built, my road, paved right over the wetlands I grew up protecting. I told her months ago that the ground couldn't handle that kind of construction, but she just smirked, holding that fake clipboard like it was a badge. "The board approved it," she said then. Now her SUV floated halfway down the ditch. I stood on my porch soaked and shaking, not from fear but from what I knew was about to happen. The HOA had forced this project through, saying it was for community access, but it was really just Karen's shortcut to the main highway. She even brought her own inspectors one afternoon, guys with no badges, just orange vests, and they marked my land with spray paint. I called the county office that same day and they told me no such project was approved. Now the storm was doing what I couldn't, taking it all back. The asphalt cracked like glass under the pressure of rising water. Karen kept yelling orders to invisible people, waving her phone as if that could stop nature. "You'll pay for this," she shouted, slipping in the mud. I didn't answer. I just turned the camera on my phone toward the broken road. Every second I filmed was proof. Proof that they ignored the warnings. Proof that she lied. And deep down I knew this flood wasn't the disaster. The disaster was still coming. When they found out who I really was. Karen's voice cracked through the rain. "You'll regret this. The HOA owns this road." I walked down the steps slowly, boots sinking into the soaked ground. "Funny," I said, keeping my voice calm, "because last I checked, the title still has my name on it." She froze for a second, her eyes flicking toward the gate where the new concrete sign read, "Private Property, Managed by Oak Ridge HOA." That sign wasn't there a week ago. She had it installed overnight. Back then, when they started bringing trucks in without notice, I tried reasoning with her. I showed her the environmental clearance papers, the federal map proving these wetlands were protected. She laughed in my face. "Oh, please, those rules don't apply here anymore. We voted. Voted. Like a neighborhood meeting could rewrite the law." Now as thunder rolled across the valley, one of the fake inspectors came running up to her. "Ma'am, the culverts collapsed. The waters—" He didn't finish. The earth behind them gave way, swallowing part of the road with a groaning roar. Karen screamed, stumbling backwards, splashing into the filthy water. I caught her by the arm before she went under. For a moment her eyes softened, like she thought I'd saved her out of kindness. But really, I just didn't want her lawsuit later claiming I'd let her drown. "You built this," I said quietly. "You ignored every warning." She pushed me away, coughing. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're finished when the board sees this footage." I smiled slightly. "They'll see it all right." Because what she didn't know was that my camera wasn't just filming for proof. It was streaming live to the county's flood monitoring system. The one I helped design before I retired from the Army Corps of Engineers. And by the time the sirens echoed down the road, I knew the county already saw everything. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the storm, bouncing off the broken pavement. Karen straightened up fast, trying to fix her hair and her voice at the same time. "Officer, over here! He's the one causing all this. He's sabotaging community property." She pointed at me like she'd just caught a criminal. 2 deputies stepped out of the truck, their boots sinking into the mud. One of them looked around, confused. "Community property? Ma'am, this whole area's registered under private wetlands protection. You can't build here." Karen laughed nervously. "That's old paperwork. I have new authorization from the HOA board." I didn't say a word. I just unlocked my phone and played the live stream that had already gone viral. Over 20,000 people watching by then. The comments were flying faster than the rain. "That's illegal. She forged the permit. Dude's a vet. Look at that footage." One deputy took my phone, scanned the tags, and whistled low. "This came from the county system." "Who uploaded this?" "I did," I said. "Name's Daniel Ross, former civil engineer, Army Corps. I built that flood map she destroyed." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The officer turned toward her, now clearly realizing who stood on which side. "Ma'am," he said, "do you have any proof this project was authorized?" She pulled a crumpled folder from her purse, shoving it forward. The papers were smudged, the ink bleeding. He looked through them, his face tightening. "These are fake. You copied the county seal." Karen took a step back, shaking her head. "No, I didn't. My lawyer said—" But before she could finish, the radio on his shoulder crackled. A voice came through. Confirming unauthorized construction, property belongs to Ross Family Trust. Environmental damage under investigation. She froze. Her face drained. I just looked at her quietly. You should have listened, I said. The deputy nodded toward me. Sir, we'll handle it from here. But as they led her away, I noticed something. One of her inspectors wasn't being detained. He slipped behind the truck, talking fast on his phone, eyes darting toward me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Karen anymore. Something bigger was coming. I caught his reflection in the truck's mirror, the so-called inspector whispering into his phone, glancing toward the broken highway like he was waiting for something. My gut tightened. I walked closer, but he turned away fast, pretending to check his gear. You might want to stay back, sir, he said with a forced smile. There's still unstable ground here. Yeah, I replied. Unstable's one word for it. Before I could ask more, another black SUV rolled up the flooded road. No HOA stickers, no county plates. The window rolled down just enough for a man in a gray suit to speak. Karen, he called out, voice sharp even through the rain. Don't say another word. Get in the car. She froze mid-sentence, eyes wide. Mr. Grant, you came? The deputies exchanged looks. Sir, this is an active investigation. Identify yourself. He ignored them, staring right at me instead. Mr. Ross, I'm with the Oak Ridge Development Council. I suggest you turn off your little live stream and step aside before you cause more damage than you already have. I felt my jaw tighten. The county already confirmed the land's mine. What's the council got to do with my wetlands? He smiled coldly. You think the HOA acts alone? This road was just phase 1. There's a state grant riding on this expansion, and your little property happens to sit right in the middle of it. Karen lowered her head like a child caught lying. The deputies started whispering, unsure who to listen to. The man in the suit stepped out, rain beating on his shoulders, his polished shoes sinking into the mud. You can either sell, Mr. Ross, or we'll find another way. Either way, this road's getting built. I took a slow breath, looking past him toward the broken asphalt where water still poured through the cracks. You sure about that? I said quietly. Because that highway? It's not going to last till morning. He frowned. What are you talking about? I pointed toward the far end where the slope met the creek. The soil there had been moving for hours, dark water bubbling under the surface. You didn't check the flood basin when you paved it. You built a dam without knowing it. And just then the ground gave a deep, shuddering groan. The deputies yelled for everyone to move. Karen screamed again. Grant tried to run back to his SUV, but the road split open with a sound like thunder, and a surge of brown water burst through, ripping chunks of asphalt into the current. I grabbed my phone tighter, still streaming. Told you, I said under my breath. The wetlands always take back what's theirs. The roar of the water drowned everything. Voices, sirens, even the pounding rain. The new road turned into a river in seconds, carrying away concrete signs and Karen's brand new SUV. People screamed, running toward higher ground. I held my ground, camera still up, recording every second. Grant's SUV tilted, half submerged. He yanked the door open, climbing onto the roof, shouting into his phone. Get the backup trucks here! Now. But no one was coming. The county had already shut down the area after the live stream exposed the fake permits. Karen stood in the mud, soaked, mascara running, eyes wide like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen, she stammered. I turned toward her. You destroyed a living system, I said. You can't pave over a river and expect it to obey you. She dropped to her knees, whispering something to herself. Maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. I didn't care which. Then the man in the suit, Grant, spotted me filming and screamed, Turn that off. Do you have any idea what you've done? I started walking toward him, slow and steady. Oh, I know exactly what I've done, I said. You built this road without environmental clearance. I gave you every warning, and now the live feed's backed up on 3 servers sent to the State Water Board, EPA, and my lawyer. His face drained. Your lawyer? Yeah, I said, and my sister. Federal environmental attorney. That stopped him cold. Karen looked up suddenly, realizing what that meant. Wait, you planned this? I met her eyes, calm but unshaken. No, I said. I prepared for it. Because I knew you wouldn't listen until something broke. Behind us, another crack tore through the soaked ground. Louder, closer. Grant's SUV lurched again, then vanished under the flood with a deep sucking sound. The water swallowed the last piece of their so-called highway. I lowered my phone, the red light still blinking. Now, I whispered, let's see what the county has to say about your HOA plans. By morning, the storm had passed, but the world had changed. Helicopters hovered over what used to be the Oak Ridge extension, filming the chaos below. Reporters crowded behind the police tape, shouting questions while drones captured the destroyed road twisting like a broken spine through the mud. I stood by the county barricade, wrapped in a rain poncho, sipping coffee that tasted like rust. The air smelled of wet earth and diesel. Karen was sitting in the back of a sheriff's SUV, silent, staring at her ruined dream. Grant was nowhere to be seen. Word was he'd been taken for questioning by federal agents. One reporter spotted me. "Mr. Ross, is it true you warned the HOA months before this?" I didn't answer right away. I just watched the water still running through the gap where their highway used to be. "I didn't warn them once," I said finally. "I warned them 6 times. They thought my land was just dirt," the crowd murmured. Someone else asked, "Is it true the live stream reached over 2 million views overnight?" I nodded. Good. People should see what happens when greed outruns nature. Then a black car pulled up, different from the others. Clean, unmarked, and quiet. A woman in a navy coat stepped out, flashing a badge. U.S. Department of Justice, Environmental Crimes Division. She walked straight toward me. "Mr. Ross," she said, calm but firm. "I'm Agent Lewis. I've been reviewing your footage since last night. You did the right thing, but there's more here than you think," I frowned. "More?" She handed me a folder, sealed but already damp from the drizzle. Inside were documents stamped confidential, property transfers, bank wire receipts, all pointing to one company, Grant Holdings LLC, funneling money through HOA accounts to buy land cheap before construction. "They used Karen and the board to force homeowners out," Lewis said quietly, "then flipped the properties to themselves for the highway project. Millions at stake." I stared at the papers, my jaw tightening. "So this wasn't just about a road?" "No," she said. "It's about corruption. And you just gave us the proof we needed." She paused, lowering her voice. "We'll need you to testify, Mr. Ross, if you're willing." I looked out at the wreckage one more time. Karen was watching me from inside the SUV, her face pale and wet, eyes full of something between regret and fear. "I'll testify," I said. "But first, make sure every family that lost land gets it back." Agent Lewis nodded. "That's already in motion." But as she walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't over yet. Because in the pile of wreckage where Grant's SUV went under, the sheriff's team found something that didn't belong, a sealed briefcase with my family's name on it. The briefcase was covered in mud when they pulled it from the debris. The sheriff handed it to me carefully, his gloves dripping brown water. "Found this wedged under the concrete," he said. "Has your family name on the tag? Ross and Associates?" My stomach tightened. That was the name of my father's old firm, the one that used to handle land surveys across the county before it mysteriously went bankrupt 20 years ago. I hadn't seen that name in print since I was a kid. I carried the case to the tailgate of a truck and flipped the latches open. The hinges creaked, and inside, neatly sealed in plastic, were folders, dozens of them, bearing signatures, maps, and property deeds. Every single one was dated between 1998 and 2001. My father's name was on half of them, Grant Holdings on the others. Karen, still sitting nearby with an officer, saw my face and blurted, "That's what he was hiding. Grant said those were destroyed years ago." I looked up slowly. "Destroyed or stolen?" Agent Lewis came over fast, taking a look inside. Her eyes widened. "Holy hell. These are the original land surveys for Oak Ridge and the wetlands. This proves your father owned most of this before the HOA even existed." It hit me like a punch. The truth wasn't new. It was buried. Grant and his company had been trying to erase my family's ownership for decades, using forged records and shady HOA takeovers to seize the land piece by piece. And Karen, she was just the latest pawn. I took one of the papers out, wiping mud off the corner where my father's signature barely showed through. "He warned them about flooding back then too," I said quietly. "They ignored him just like they ignored me." Lewis nodded. "These documents will end this whole operation. Federal charges, racketeering, fraud." But she hesitated for a moment, watching me. "You okay, Mr. Ross?" I laughed softly, though it came out rough. "Yeah, just funny how the land finally told the truth when no one else would." Then Karen spoke up from behind the car window, voice shaking. I didn't know, Daniel. I swear I didn't. He said it was legal. He said you sold. I turned to her, steady but cold. You wanted power, Karen. You didn't care who you hurt to get it. The only thing you didn't realize was this land doesn't belong to anyone who disrespects it. She looked down, silent. Agent Lewis closed the briefcase and handed it to her team. We'll take it from here, she said. But you might want to be at the courthouse next week. Something tells me you'll want to see how this ends. I nodded. The rain had stopped, the air still heavy but quiet. The wetlands shimmered under the first bit of sunlight breaking through the clouds, like they'd been waiting for this moment too. But even as I stood there, something about that sunlight hit the broken road in a strange way, a glint of metal deep in the mud, not from the briefcase, from something else, something that looked recent. I stepped closer to the shimmer in the mud, my boots sinking with every step. The deputies were busy loading evidence, so no one noticed when I crouched down and pulled the object free. It was a flash drive wrapped in a layer of plastic and duct tape. Someone had hidden it there on purpose. Agent Lewis saw me standing still and came over. What is it? I held it up. Something Grant didn't want floating away. We plugged it into her laptop right there on the tailgate. The files opened instantly, videos, documents, and one folder labeled Oak Ridge Expansion Phase 2. Inside were blueprints that went far beyond the highway. They showed a massive luxury development, private lakes, resorts, and gated communities, stretching right over protected wetlands, all signed off under fake environmental clearances. Lewis leaned in, whispering, "This is federal." They were planning to erase half the conservation zone for profit. I scrolled through, jaw tightening, until I found the last file, a memo from Grant to a state senator. Once Ross's property is absorbed, we'll have full control. The HOA will take the heat if anything leaks. That line hit me like a hammer. I felt the heat rise in my chest, not from anger, but from something heavier. They'd planned everything. My land, my father's name, the flooding risk, all just obstacles in their way. Lewis looked at me. This ends them. Every single one of them. The days that followed moved fast. News outlets called it the Oak Ridge Conspiracy. Arrests hit every level of the chain. Grant, the fake inspectors, even 2 county officials who signed off on phony documents. Karen's face appeared on every screen, crying during her hearing, saying she didn't know. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she just liked the power too much to ask questions. A week later, I stood on my porch again, watching the county trucks clear what was left of the highway. The wetlands were breathing again, slow and steady. Herons had already come back. Agent Lewis stopped by one last time. You did more than expose them, she said. You protected something bigger than your land. I nodded, eyes on the water. My father always said land remembers who it belongs to. Guess he was right, she smiled softly. You ever think about rebuilding? I looked at the stretch of green returning under the morning sun. Nah, I said. Some things are better left wild. She started to leave, but I added, oh, agent, tell your bosses something for me. She turned. What's that? I smiled faintly. Tell them the next time a man stands on his own land and someone says he doesn't belong there, remind them this country was built by people who refuse to move. The wind picked up, carrying the sound of birds across the wet fields. The camera I'd set on my porch blinked red again. Live, recording, unedited. This time not for proof, for memory. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't stand on my own ground.